Okay, my name's Zakashi guys, and in this video here, we're talking about broken abilities and power creep. Now, we're leading into the 5th anniversary, and I feel like everybody expects there to be something new, if not at the start of the anniversary, leading later into where we get the Ultra. If we get the Ultra, not at the start anyways. But with that being said, with all these units dropping, we're at a stage where we have 4 units dominating the game, and I'm sure you guys know who exactly those units are. Ultra Gogeta Blue, Ultra Hit, Ultra Rose, and Ultra Kid Buu. These 4 Ultras have held the crown. No matter who you want to put in top 1, they all have an argument for it, and I feel like that's made the game somewhat balanced. But at the same time, if you don't have at least one of them, you're not doing anything in the god ranks, and it's kind of tough unless you're really trying to sweat, you know what I'm saying? With those 4 units, it's 3 wins, but moving forward, it's almost guaranteed that we'll see a unit that will eclipse these 4 units, and that's going to be insane, on top of the fact that there's things in the PvP system such as the boost system just making it tough. Zenkai buffs all over the place. The arts boost system is now in the game. So what kind of mechanic could we see? So I'm going to give some speculation on what we could see, and on top of that, I'm going to talk about what we already have in the game and how those things could evolve. So hopefully you guys are going to enjoy this video, man. If you haven't already, make sure to press that subscribe button, man. We're on this grind to 50,000 subscribers. We're at 45,000. I appreciate you guys showing all the love and support the channel. We're very close, so help me grab that, man. Help us grab that. All my social media links at the bottom of the screen, so check me out on all of those. But yeah, man, let's actually get into this video now. Okay, so I feel like the smartest thing to do before we talk about the evolution in the game is to actually look at what we have at the moment. So I would have to start with the first summonable Ultra. Ultra Super Gogeta here. He came with an interesting gauge, right? And his gauge, essentially every time it fills up, he gets a blue card. And during his release, he was OP as hell. He lived for like a year, and the reason that is just because he had dangerous stats, and his gauge was so insane, getting a blue card every single time. And it's not just the gauge itself, it's more so the fact that when he gets a blue card, if he lands it, which he's going to because it fills up on a combo, it destroys all your cards. It stops you from actually initiating a combo straight away. That's very, very inconvenient. But a lot of other things happen when his gauge fills. Once the unique gauge is full, it resets to 0 and applies the effect. So he gets the blue card unlimited times, by the way. He restores his health, he gets key damage inflicted, and reduces the next damage sustained by 20%. So consistently filling his gauge is going to be a big help to you actually winning the game. I feel like talking about him, very simply understood. Everybody knows how much of a menace he was. But with that releasing at the time, he only had to get eclipsed by something else. Now this guy here, Ultra Super Gogeta, he had a very strong melee team. He's a very strong melee attacker, a lot of strikes all over the place. It's not easy to deal with. But what this guy did, right, when he dropped, every time an enemy switches out and is faced with this guy, here, it says here, the following effects occur when this character enters the battlefield, and it says steals enemy strike every time when faced with an enemy. That was crazy annoying, but that's not even everything he has. This guy's gauge here, let me actually look at it over here. Every time, once the unique gauge is full, it resets to 0 and applies the following effects to self. Draw a special arts card next, green card, and then he restores health. And what's crazy about this, I'm not even going to go into all the buffs that you can just read. It's a fat paragraph. At the bottom, restores vanishing gauge by 100% and it activates 5 times in a game. You're going to get at least 4 times, and that would lead to the longest combos you will ever see. He draws a bunch of green cards, man. Does he even have a green card? No, he doesn't. But on green card, he draws a card, which is insane, and he builds up his ultimate damage. Overall, he's just building up a lot of damage, and he's gonna literally cause you problems. You can't actually just switch out to somebody and do a strike, so it indirectly blocks your combo, because you might have been like, okay, let me switch out and do a strike, but that person's now faced with Kaioken and you're done. You know why? Because when you try to press that strike, it's sealed. You should have pressed the blast or the blue card, and if you only had a blue card, your combo is forced to end. It's tough. I'm not going to talk about Ultra Super Vegito for long. Ultra Super Vegito came with a new ability where he actually just counters your blast arts, so it's a bit strange, right? But obviously when people saw it, it was like, whoa, what's that? Cool. So when the enemy does a blast arts, let me actually just find it. While charging forward with a strike cards, if own unique gauge is at 30% or more, consumes the entire unique gauge to counter enemies tap shot or blast attacks. So you can see he does the attack when you do the blast arts, and that would actually allow him to actually just get a few more seconds to maybe fill up his gauge or draw more cards, which is dope. And then when that actually activates, he gets a few things, but people think it's not that great. But me as a USV user, you can make good use of it if you're very fast. You see here, it says applies the following effects to self when counter activates, restores key by 20, he gets 100% of that strike cards damage inflicted, which is making a big difference, by the way, but it's only for 2 time accounts. That really and truly isn't the biggest help, but the next bit is more useful than anything. So you can see here, applies the buff effect, nullifies enemies, special actions that activate when changing cover for 10 timer counts. Now, in most situations, you won't get the full 10, but you have to initiate a combo and you can't combo into the counter. But if you can start a combo quick for a stomach punch or something like that, a tap attack, blast starts, cancel, you could actually get at least 6 to 7 timer counts of cover nullification, which is actually more than most units get. So the fact that it allows you to actually be at long range and stop the enemy from hitting you because you got the counter, it's quite useful, I have to say. Alright, so right there I only dove into the first 3, but you know we got a lot of ultras here to talk about. We got after Ultra Super Vegito, we got Ultra Broly with his combo stopping. It literally just breaks your combo and there's nothing you can do about it unless you're really prepared for it, but even then you kind of just have to force a rush to get away from it. Next we had Ultra Gogeta Blue. He literally changed the game with it's futile, but even before that, when his gauge just fills, that's when it drains, but when it fills, he's actually gaining health and he's actually breaking your combo, and he's actually basically forcing you to not use blast starts, which is insane. Makes blast units just so much more irrelevant in this game. Next after that, we had Ultra Hit. I don't need to say much besides the fact that
time skip is unbeatable.
Like, it's stupid. It's a stupid ability. Once you land it, in 9 times out of 10, if it's a decent hit, it's gonna one-shot pretty much anybody in the game, which is actually insane. After that, we have Ultra Rose. Ultra Rose over here with his, what, 3 ultimates? That's so stupid. And obviously, when his gauge actually, I believe when it fills, he's actually able to get his Vanish back too, which is dope. Now, we've got Ultra Kid Buu, who has a gauge that can fill and empty, but he gets a bunch of buffs off of that, and it actually upgrades a few things in his kit. For example, he can actually get a blue card, which cannot be switched out from when he actually activates it, which is pretty dope. And his blue card's already pretty good because if I actually go into it, because he's the last unit I'm going to talk about right now, he actually gets his Vanish back, which is dope. 100% Vanishing Gauge, which activates twice. So overall, you can see that these ultras are really the top of the game and you shouldn't mess with them at all. With that being said, I only talked about the ultras because they literally run the game. That doesn't touch on any of the actual regular units that we've got that aren't ultras, so Legend Limiteds and Sparkings. I'm not going to talk about Sparkings really, but I just had to say that. Beast Gohan, we already know about him. He's dangerous as hell. Black Air Force wearer when he's running at you. I'm not going to say Boo Bros changed the game, but their actual ability has a lot of potential if they applied it to someone else. Imagine an Ultra Beast Gohan with this ability, and he's literally charging up in the back with Beast Gohan. The animations on that would be dope. That would actually be a lovely unit over there. The tag 4s, most units just had regular tag switches. Obviously the UI dodge with MUI and UI sign. They tried to make Dragon Fist dope, but they didn't cook him with that, in my opinion. And LL17, I'm going to talk about him because he's nice. I feel like out of anybody out of the Legend Limiteds, Beast Gohans was just insane. MUI and UI sign on release, they had insane potential, I'm not going to lie. LL17s is pretty dope as well. So those guys there I definitely put up for conversation of having a wild gauge. And let me not even start about Blue Bros when they released at the start of the game. So there's a lot of gauges and a lot of unique things that they've added to the game that actually made every other unit kind of eclipse the next one. Not everybody, but obviously there's some sort of meta creep going on. Now that we've actually kind of reminisced on all of these broken abilities, like really and truly it's the gauge thing that's carrying the game. So I'm going to talk a bit more about gauges. We have all these gauges, but I feel like the next step, if they're not going to just keep giving out these same gauges, would actually just be to stack gauges. I feel like there's a lot of units that could have 2 gauges. So for example, really and truly, if we look at Ultra Gogeta Blues, his is like 2 gauges. It's just that the 2 things activate separately. So his gauge fills, that's it filling, but then it empties through the counter. But some people just have the 1. So for example, some people's are just counters like USVs, but then at the same time, UGBs fills up through the sustained damage type, so it's kind of a mix of the 2, if that makes sense. Then some people have a time type, and then maybe it could empty. They're literally just mixing gauges, but maybe calling it a different thing. You know what I'm saying? So at this point, we might actually just see a unit that actually just incorporates multiple things at once. So for example, we might see a time type where, let's take UVB, right? I'm just gonna speculate, like I said, I'm gonna talk about how they can evolve, but really and truly, it's not gonna stop. So let's take UVB. He could have like a time type thing where obviously when the time happens, maybe he fuses. I feel like this was like the big thing. Let's take tag 4s as well. Everybody was talking about that in the festival. We have a tag unit that fuses. So they have a time type when they fuse, but prior to that, they would have just the regular tag switch. Every time they switch, you know how it works, the reverse. The time one is filling up gradually, kind of similar to hit. And then once it's filled, you activate it through a card. maybe a green card. With that, that's 2 gauges. And then even then they could take it a step further and give an attack type gauge so that every time you're using an arts card, it's filling up while they're fused. But at the same time, this time gauge might be draining. So similar to how we have the evade type and the count, it's not the evade type, I think it's just the evade type where it gradually decreases. I think the count of USV gradually depletes as well. You can see that there's multiple gauges going on, and that's just one idea, but I'm sure you guys could actually make a lot. But I'm just showing you how they're pretty much just incorporating a lot of different gauges into one thing and just making it very, very insane. Since we've already got the tag switch with Boo Bros, but they've got like this timer thing as well where it's a prep time thing. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully you guys can maybe come up with some creative ideas. Maybe I can make the video for itself with like interesting gauge mixes. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Bringing this video to an end, and I feel like I should make a part 2 of this video. Definitely leave the best gauge mixes that you have in the comments. I will use it for a video. So for example, I just mixed like 3 gauges for UVB where they have tag switch and they have the timer, but in this case it's filling up, but maybe you fill it up through strikes or whatever, and then after they fuse through a card similar to Hit's time skip, the time is going down similar to the evade type or or the counter type that USV has, and then after they defuse it resets again. But they could have an attack type gauge while they're fused as well, depending on how long it lasts. There's so many things that could go on in just one unit, but they might just class it on the one gauge, even though it's really a mix of multiple gauges, high key. So let me know some ideas in the comment section, as I could make another video for it. Now the last bit I'm going to talk about before I actually end the video is that, is it good for them to keep eclipsing units? And I feel like yes, it is. Regardless of how you view it, the game has to get a higher ceiling. Maybe not so fast. For example, Beast Gohan might have been too high of a ceiling to drop that immediately. Ultra Super Gogeta, when he released, might have been too high of a ceiling when he dropped immediately. Some units actually just take over the game too strongly, and then some units actually take over the game strongly but then get eclipsed so fast because the next unit was so bad. I feel like the biggest moment in history where that's happened is when Final Form Cooler dropped and then Beast Gohan just eclipsed him literally like that, and this guy was nowhere to be found. He disappeared like the Avatar. You ain't do shit about it. Literally, there's them few guys that still use him, but really and truly he's not a top 10 caliber unit in most people's opinion, and that should be standard. When things like that happened, it's like, wow, like, are they doing the best thing? But then again, it's very hard, and well, we're not devs, but let's say it seems very hard considering the devs don't always do the best job of like gradually easing things up. I feel like the best job that they've done was since the festival, where they dropped good support units alongside the units that were meant to eclipse things. So for example, in the festival that we had recently, they dropped Pan right before it, but leading into it, the first unit that we actually got was Android 17 from GT. Then they also dropped Zamasu, who's in the game for a while. UGB didn't get no unit, but then after that they've been trying to drop support units that have actually been valuable to the game, and with the support units I feel like they've actually made a good difference. Now I'm not saying they're actual support units, but they're not leading characters for the banner. Obviously the leading character for the GT banner was the Tag 4s, then we had Trunks and Vegeta. So with that being the case, and obviously before that we had Beast and Pan, so Beast would be the leading unit, Pan is the support unit. Pan being free as well was very, very exceptional. So when they do that, I feel like it kind of stops the broken ability being so much if the support unit, or let me just say the support cast of the banner, so they're not support units in whole, so people don't get confused. The support cast of the banner would stop the units that are leading the banner or any other units in the meta being too OP, because all of these units actually can help each other in tandem on different scales. So even right now we've got Regeneration doing its thing, we've got Future doing its thing, we've got Universe Rep can do its thing, we've got even Fusion Warriors can do its thing. So there's all these other teams here where you can choose from and actually succeed even with broken abilities coming out. But at the same time, it's without a doubt when a broken ability does come out, the game will change. It kind of just felt like a sentimental conversation to have, but with the anniversary coming forward, it's without a doubt we're gonna see some broken abilities, at least one. And if we don't, I feel like people would still feel like it's a disappointment. But if we do see a broken ability at the same time, people would be disappointed. So it's kind of like, you can't please anybody, you can't please everybody. But it's going to be how it's going to be, and everybody just has to look forward to it in a sense. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, man. If you haven't already, make sure to press the subscribe button, man. We're on this grind to 50,000 subscribers. Appreciate you guys for watching the video, man. This was a fun video to do, to kind of just reminisce on old kits that we've had. We've had a lot of power creep in this game. and there's always going to be more. My name is Zakashi, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one, man.